We been doing it. I'm sure. Tripod Cap out here with another video back in that scabbage, man. How you talking about food? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Making another video. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Tripod Cap out with another video. You know what I'm saying, though? You know what I'm saying, though? And but a video. Let's get into this video, man. The entire Mafia story so far. Let's get into the video. Let's get it. Entire full story so far. Not, it don't got the Mafia in LLC. Don't got the Mafia, the old country, because that game's coming out next year in a couple of months, as we said, because a couple of months is next year. So 2025.
Driver named Thomas Angelo, called Little Italy.
So let's get into this for the first story, Mafia 1. Let's get into it. And I'll be doing the whole playthrough to Mafia 1, Mafia 2, and maybe Mafia 3. Cause I remember Mafia 3 being a little bit repetitive on the side of the side missions. But the story was pretty good. The gameplay was awesome. The story was awesome, and everything else was awesome besides the side mission. Doing them over and over again. The gameplay was just, yeah, it took me like, I don't remember the gameplay for real. I don't even remember half the stuff for real, on like 5%, but I know that game was hard, but I played it on a hard mode. I finished it. Yeah, I'm gonna do Watch Dogs too. Just a whole lot of gameplay we gonna do on here, bro. Let's join bro. Mafia 1, let's get it. Entire Mafia story so far. Let's get it. Like, subscribe, and share. And do everything in the description. Follow everything. Follow my clothing brand. Order some new jackets, and gonna be here soon. I'm gonna show y'all when my jacket get here. But yeah, keep doing what y'all doing. Keep supporting, man. Progression, grinding. Even if you at work right now, 9 to 5, or any work type of work, job, your business, for your job, 9 to 5 for your job, all that, bro. Doing anything for real, man. Chilling. You know what I'm saying? Grinding. You know what I'm saying? Being patient. You know what I'm saying? Waiting for something, bro. Whatever, bro. Saying life is not fast. Life is definitely slow. Some people just think it's fast once they get there. It's not fast, but it's very slow and patient. You know what I'm saying? Slow, steady, always kind of win the race. You know what I'm saying? Got people mentally ready, bro. Sometimes you feel like you gonna quit. Shit, but you shouldn't quit. Cause even a job is hard, bro. Well, some jobs, not every job, but a lot of jobs is hard. A lot of, you gonna become a millionaire, a billionaire, make a lot of money. You gotta live a hard life, my boy. You gotta be ready mentally. Be, you know what I'm saying, ready. Cause you never know, you might be a millionaire when you 40, 30, 20. It don't matter. Bro. You know what I'm saying? About comparing yourself to the progression. Some of them probably didn't even buy that stuff. They got it. But there ain't nothing wrong with that either. So there ain't nothing wrong with people helping you get a footstep in the door, bro. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
1930, Lost Heaven, USA. A taxi driver named Thomas Angelo, or Tommy, is working a late shift and stops to take a smoke break. It's a peaceful evening, and that is until he hears the screeching of tyres and a crash. A couple of mobsters run round the corner, one of which is injured. They order Tommy at gunpoint to get them to a district called Little Italy, and after a tense chase and being fired upon, they manage to lose their pursuers. The two mobsters introduce themselves as Paulie and Sam. They are part of the Salieri crime family, an offshoot of the Sicilian Mafia. Tommy waits in the cab, as Paulie said that they will give him something from the Don, Ennio Salieri. Sam gives Tommy an envelope and says to just ask them if he wants some honest work. Tommy goes back home and the envelope contains a wad of cash, which would more than cover the repairs to Tommy's now bullet-ridden taxicab. Hell, it would even buy him a complete brand new one. He considers what Sam said to him about some honest work, but even so, he decided against it as, in his words, it's better to be poor and alive than rich and dead. Problem is that Tommy tried to avoid trouble, but trouble found him. In September of that year, Tommy went back to work and after a few fares, takes a coffee break.
You gotta take risks in life, bro. For real, you gotta take risks and be patient, bro. Like me right now, I'm taking risks right now, bro. I could be sleeping right now, but I'm taking risks. You know what I'm saying? I don't got no job right now as speaking. Right now, I don't got no car or nothing, bro. I gotta be patient. So I'm not waiting on this stuff, but I'm gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? I just moved out of Texas to my grandma's house, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? On this, you know what I'm saying? I just turned 18 like 4 months ago. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? I'm figuring out life still, but I got my life planned out, bro. Well, you never know what life is planned out for you, but you just gonna keep adding on to the list. But I got a path to enter. Oh, I got a path to enter. I already started like 2 business. And I got YouTube channels too. So some of them doing good, some of them doing slowly progress, and this is one that slowly progress once. You know what I'm saying? I ain't expecting me to get 1 million views for the first video I made. You know what I'm saying? But or 100K or 1K. You know what I'm saying? The first 100 views. You know what I'm saying? Even 200 or it's just progression, man. Wait, man. Go get a nine. Go get a job. Man. Wait, man. Go get some money. Invest. You know what I'm saying? I invest in the camera with my job money. I invest with it. You know what I'm saying? You know it's not the best, but you can still do. You still see me, right? It's not glitching out or being slow. I can do all this I want to. You can still come see me. Even at night, it's time to get like, sometimes it get like a little bad, you know what I'm saying? A little dark than I am, but sometimes it got me looking funny, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? Just the progress and grinding, bro. This is all raw.
He sat in
I don't even edit my videos yet, and I know how to edit, bro.
his cab when two mobsters turn up with baseball bats and start smashing up his cab and beating him. He shoves one of them and runs off. He heads straight for Salieri's bar and sees Paulie and Sam outside. Sam and Paulie address the two as Dino and Lou. Sam says Tommy is the Don's favourite driver. Dino and Lou says they're not leaving empty-handed, and Paulie emerges with a shotgun and Dino and Lou back off. Dino and Lou are part of the Morello crime family. It's early on in the video, but we should, at this point, having mentioned the two crime families, Salieri and Morello, discuss a little bit of background. Before the Salieri and Morello crime families were established, their dons, Ennio Salieri and Marco Morello, were actually really good friends. They both served as a capo regime, or capos, kind of like a protege, under the mob boss Felice Pepone. This was until 1921, when Don Pepone was killed in a deal gone wrong. The death of the Don caused a split in the Pepone crime family, and Ennio Salieri and Marco Morello went their separate ways and established their own crime families, controlling different territories in the city. Throughout the 20s, both families would take advantage of the prohibition by operating bootlegging rackets in the city, but Marco Morello's crime family would grow to be a lot more powerful than Salieri's, and due to the Great Depression and everyone being affected by the lack of money, corruption was rife, and Morello, due to his power and influence, had most of the city's cops, judges, and officials in his pocket. Salieri had some, but not nearly as many as Morello did. Morello could get away with so much, and the police would turn a blind eye. One story even tells of Morello losing his head and beating a boxer to death with a tire iron in the middle of the street in broad daylight. There was also some speculation that Salieri and Morello were responsible for the death of their Don, and this is confirmed through a later conversation between Morello and his brother. Anyway, let's get back into the story. Paulie and Sam take Tommy to meet Don Salieri, and he offers a small loan to Tommy for the damage done to his cab. Tommy said he's not interested in the loan, but he just wants a shot at Lou and Dino. Salieri permits this as he says Morello's goons can't rough up people in his neighbourhood without consequences. Paulie and Tommy go to visit the gunsmith for the mob, Vincenzo Ricci, who supplies them with Molotov cocktails. They then go and see Ralphie, the mob's mechanic, who sets them up with a vehicle. Tommy and Paulie arrive at the bar and torch the gang members' cars, beat up their guards and steal Dino's prized possession, his car. They get back to Salieri's bar and Don Salieri is overjoyed at the thought of a mad Morello. Because according to Salieri, he says that a mad Morello is a stupid Morello, and he formally invites Tommy to join the family. Before we proceed, let's talk about Tommy's early life. Tommy was himself born in Sicily in the year 1900. Tommy was born to his father, Marco Angelo Sr., and his mother, Maria Angelo. He had two siblings, Marco Angelo Jr. and Isabella Angelo. His father worked on a plantation as a supervisor, and when the plantation closed down, the Angelos became poverty-stricken. This fueled the family's move to America in 1904, and they originally settled in Empire Bay, but they eventually found themselves settling in Lost Heaven. Marco Angelo Sr. found work at the harbour in Lost Heaven, and worked there for a good 15 years until his death. After growing up, Tommy found work working with a road crew, building highways and roads throughout the US. He eventually grew tired of the lifestyle that came with the job though, and wanted to settle, so he went back to Lost Heaven and saved up enough money to buy a cab and work as a taxi driver. But again, back into the story. Over the next month, Tommy would prove himself as a valuable asset to the Salieri crime family, but the days were slow. He starts to think about whether the dangers he'd assumed about life in the mob weren't even so dangerous at all. But that's all about to change. Salieri calls a meeting because it's collection day. They need to collect the money from local businesses that they protect, so Paulie, Sam and Tommy set out. They do some simple collections in the city. People are struggling due to the Great Depression and the Wall Street crash, but they reluctantly pay up. They then drive out into the countryside to collect from a motel. The owner of the motel, Bill, was short the previous month, so he owes interest. They arrive and Paulie and Sam tell Tommy to stay with the car. It's not long before Tommy is called into action though, as he hears shots, and Paulie stumbles out with a gunshot wound, followed by a mobster from Morello's crime family saying that the motel is now theirs. Paulie tells Tommy that Sam is still in there, and Tommy sneaks inside and rescues him, but they are attacked by one of Morello's men, who drives off with the money. Tommy gives chase and kills the guy. A couple of years pass and Tommy is now a soldato, or soldier, more commonly known as a made man. Salieri has made a lot of money off of motor racing. He has this hotshot young racer called Mikey Dunn, who never loses. He's made a lot of money off of betting on the kid winning, and has made other people a lot of money too. Problem is that Morello has gotten wind of this and he's been making his own moves. A European hotshot has entered the latest race, and his car is silly fast. Morello stands to make a lot, and Salieri, along with all the other people that have put bets on Mikey Dunn, stand to lose a lot. Morello has put the driver up somewhere safe for his protection. Now, the European winning cannot happen, so naturally Salieri sends Tommy to the track, as they know the guard. Tommy takes the car to a mechanic who makes some adjustments, and Tommy gets the car back to the track before the next guard starts his shift. Then the following day, it's race day. The Don's consigliere, Frank Coletti, approaches Tommy.
Oh yeah. I follow the Instagram. Big Guap Drabo. BIGGUAP. Start it over. Type that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? BIG, right? GUAP, right? D, right? REBO, Trebo, Big Walk, Trebo, BIG, you know what I'm saying? BIGGUP. I'm hit BIGGUAP DREBO. Big Walk, Drebo. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to make y'all swear y'all type it in right. You know what I'm saying? You request me more videos, right? But also stay in tune. You follow me on that so you can stay in tune on them. I upload and my Twitch, right? You know what I'm saying? Share my Twitch, you know what I'm saying? Come support and watch and you know what I'm saying? Give me a follow and subscribe to my Twitch, man. So come support me, you know what I'm saying? Do it, you know what I'm saying? Also, you can just donate me some money too, you know what I'm saying? Some cash, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna invest it, but yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? You're new to the channel, subscribe. Even though we 7 minutes in the video, I just gotta say that.
Me at the racetrack and delivers some bad news. Salieri wasn't the only one trying to protect his investment. Morello sent a few of his guys to rough up Mikey Dunn and put him in the hospital. Frank tells Tommy the only option is for him to race in Dunn's place and win, otherwise they will lose a lot of money. As expected, the European's car breaks down straight away, and after a tense race and grabbing first place, the crowd goes wild, and Tommy has caught someone's eye. This is Sarah Marino, and she works at Salieri's bar along with her father Luigi. Luigi has a very storied past. Luigi was actually a hitman for the Italian mob and had huge reputation. Luigi went on the straight and narrow after he went to prison as he feared losing his wife and daughter Sarah. Living a clean life, Luigi then worked at Salieri's as a barman. Not long after the race, Tommy is speaking to Luigi. He expresses concern for Sarah walking home as she's being harassed by a group of young men who hang around near where she lives. Luigi asks Tommy to walk her home as a favour, which Tommy agrees. It's a nice evening for a stroll, and after some small talk they arrive. Sure enough, the gang are there, and even Tommy's presence doesn't deter them from harassing Sarah. Tommy tells them to back off, but they mention that they know who he works for, but they don't care at all. Tommy takes care of them but gets slashed by a knife in the process, and Sarah patches him up. She says she got used to patching people up as her mother was an abusive drunk who took her anger out on Luigi, and she'd often have to do the same for him. The thugs were taken care of, but that's not the end of it. Salieri is protective of Sarah, and he wants her harassers to pay the price, telling Paulie and Tommy to track them down and break every bone in their body. After getting a few bats from Vinny, they beat the tar out of the young men, but two of them escape in a car. They crash and are in a bad way. Tommy can't bring himself to shoot the driver Billy, so Paulie does it, also shooting Billy's best friend Johnny. Not long after this, Paulie, Sam and Tommy are playing poker at the bar. Salieri comes in and gets straight down to business. One of the guys they killed, Billy, is called Billy Gallotti. He's the son of a city councillor named Roberto Gallotti. Salieri says this is bad for all of them because that's the exact way that you drive a politician into the arms of Morello. What's worse is that the other guy in the car, Johnny, didn't die. He spent a week at the hospital, but he survived, so the Don needs Sam to take Johnny out so he can't testify. But, due to the identity of the deceased, the funeral will have a heavy police presence. You see, Salieri has been having trouble with a gentleman's club, a brothel basically. The Don invested a lot of money in it over the years, but the manager and owner has decided to part ways with Salieri and team up with Morello instead. Salieri tasks Tommy with setting off an explosion whilst the funeral is taking place. That should draw some of the police away from the church. But there's another thing. Tommy needs to kill someone. A prostitute at the brothel called Michelle. Salieri has got wind that Michelle has been flapping her gums to Morello's guys after some pillow talk with one of his guys. This turns out to be Sam. Although Salieri doesn't know it's him. She's been giving Morello the lowdown on all Salieri's business. As a result, Sam asks Tommy to spare Michelle and give her some money so she can get out of the city and move somewhere else. Tommy picks up a bomb from Vincenzo and he and Sam head to their respective destinations. Tommy finds Michelle and spares her and blows up the hotel, escapes from the police and enters the church. Johnny gets up to say a few words about his friend, but Johnny spots Tommy through a side door. A shootout takes place in the church and Tommy confronts Johnny. He's about to shoot Tommy when Sam saves him and takes Johnny out. They bribe the priest to keep quiet. It's not over yet though. Tommy and Sam have to shake the cops and get back to Salieri's. I want to take a quick break here and talk about the Don's consigliere, Frank Coletti. First of all, the consigliere is basically an advisor to the boss of a crime family. Think Tom Hagen in The Godfather. Frank Coletti wasn't just the consigliere for the Salieri family, he was also Ennio Salieri's best friend. They grew up together and both came from a poor area of the city. He valued the Don's friendship and his being the Don's advisor gave him a lot in life. He is a very smart man. Despite being involved in all aspects of the family's affairs, he chooses to focus more on the legal side of the business and does the accounts for the family too. But after that short segue, let's jump back in again. In 1933, Tommy is tasked by Frank to retrieve 2 trucks containing liquor which has come from Canada. Sam is already at the location, a farm outside of the city, so Paulie and Tommy drive out to meet him. When they get there though, everyone is dead and Sam is nowhere to be seen. Some men show up and Tommy kills them all. Paulie finds out that they are cops, more specifically border patrol cops who are on Morello's payroll and who were ordered to kill Salieri's men and steal the liquor. They search the farm and find Sam, who is in a shootout with Morello's mob, and he is shot. Paulie and Tommy use a truck to get Sam out of there, and after fighting off more police, they make it to a doctor who can patch Sam up. Not long after this, Tommy meets Don Salieri in a park. Salieri tells him that the family have a mole. It's Frank. The Don determined that this was the case after he went to investigate the potential mole by looking at the accounts. The Don says that the books were gone. Salieri says that if those books fall into the hands of the feds, then they are done. Finished. He tells Tommy to track down Frank, get the books back and kill Frank. So Tommy goes to Frank's house. He sees him getting into a car and he's being taken somewhere. Tommy tails them and Frank's going to the airport. It's heavily guarded, but after sneaking through the airport, Tommy reaches Frank, preparing to leave. Frankie explains that Morello had some of the Lost Heaven police actually kidnap Frank's wife and daughter and forced him into handing over evidence regarding the affairs of the Salieri family. Tommy asks why Frank didn't ask for the family's help, but Frank replies that he's tired of watching his back because of his association with Salieri, and he's tired of looking under his car every time he wants to take a drive somewhere. Tommy makes a decision to spare Frank and report back that he's been killed. Frank tells Tommy where the books are and Tommy gets the books back and torches Frank's home. As far as Salieri and the family know, Frank and his family are dead and a funeral is held. Morello and his brother Sergio show up, but only to show their respect, as they have known Frank for a long time. During the same year, more problems. Morello has a prosecutor named Watkins on his payroll. This dirty prosecutor is good friends with Roberto Gilotti, the city councillor, and the father of Billy. The death of Billy has come back to haunt the family again, as Morello has told Watkins that Salieri may have had something to do with Billy's murder, and has got some key witnesses that Sam and Paulie will take care of. Tommy needs to team up with a safecracker called Salvatore, and breaks into a safe inside Watkins' home and steal whatever information Watkins has on the family. They manage to get inside and Salvatore works his magic, but Tommy is a bit too eager, setting off the safe's alarm. They grab the documents and get out of there. A few months pass and Salieri and his guys are in their warehouse. Times are tough. The mob are having to sell most of their inventory just to make payroll. But Paulie comes to the rescue and informs Salieri of a potential deal with some Kentucky-based bootleggers who produce whiskey. They have been in partnership with Morello, but Morello is already twisting their arms and they want out. They all have to make it look like a robbery so the bootleggers can go back and convince their boss that Morello can't protect them, forcing them into the arms of Salieri. The family need the deal to replace the Canadian supply of liquor, as Morello and the border cops killed all the Canadians back at the farm. Salieri goes for it and they take along the Don's driver Carlo. They all meet at a parking garage. It all goes well, that is until Morello's guys turn up. They make it out of the parking garage and deliver the whiskey to Salieri's warehouse. Salieri approves of the whiskey and a partnership is struck up. It's now 1935. 2 years have passed and lots has changed. Tommy and Sarah got married and have a daughter, and the family have taken their money from the bootlegging and moonshining and put it into construction, restaurants, trucking and gambling. But the one where they drew the line was peddling dope, or heroin. But Salieri was focused on only one thing, moving out of the shadow of Morello. But something's bubbling up. Salieri's driver Carlo called in sick, so he needs Tommy to drive him to his favourite restaurant, Pepe's. The Don sits down for his meal, but trouble arrives. Morello's goons turn up and shoot up the restaurant, also setting it on fire. Tommy has to flank them and take them out. The Don is alive, and he and Tommy say that it's not a coincidence that Morello knew where Salieri was at that moment that day. Carlo called in sick for work, and they leave to track him down. When they find him, Tommy chases him through the alleyways, and the Don exacts punishment on Carlo, ending him. Carlo was the reason Morello knew about the deal in the parking garage, because Carlo was listening in. Meanwhile, down at the docks, Morello is beating on some bloke called Gordy, who is the union boss of the docks, and Gordy was planning a strike, and Morello tells his brother Sergio that a change of leadership is in order. Sergio is in control of the unions and is Morello's top earner. Sergio tells Morello that his ordered hit on Salieri failed, and that Salieri is still alive, and that Salieri figured out that Carlo was the rat. Morello is furious and says they've always been at war with Salieri's family, but now the war is out in the open. The war has officially begun between Salieri and Morello. A meeting is called to plan their strategy. Salieri says that they have to soften him up, as Morello has pretty much all the police and politicians in his pocket. Their plan is to scare them into abandoning Morello and his sinking ship. They decide that it's time to go after Gilotti. He's still smarting from the murder of his son Billy at the hands of Salieri's family 3 years earlier, so he's very loyal to Morello. Gilotti is celebrating his birthday on a steamboat and is giving a speech. Tommy wears a disguise and gets onto the boat and grabs a weapon smuggled onto the ship by a janitor. Tommy then gets to a vantage point and shoots and kills Gilotti. It's not over yet, as Tommy needs to get to Sam and Paulie waiting in a nearby boat so he can make his escape. One evening, sometime later, Sam and Vinny are chasing Morello's brother Sergio, but Sam and Vinny crash and Sergio gets away. Back at the bar, a plan is devised to go after Sergio again, and this time to take care of him. Due to Sergio controlling the docks, he allows a lot of imports to come into Lost Heaven for his brother. They think that by taking him out, they'll wipe out a lot of Morello's income. Their plan is a car bomb. Vinny gives it to Tommy and he drives out to Sergio's house. It's guarded, but Tommy plants the bomb successfully. But there's a problem. Sergio isn't home, his wife is. She gets into the car and starts it up, and before Tommy can run across the street and warn her, the bomb goes off, killing her. Tommy calls Vinny and Tommy books it out of there and goes to meet up with Paulie and Sam, who have spotted Sergio in a restaurant called Georgie's. As usual, Sergio escapes, but Tommy gives chase on a bike and chases Sergio to the docks, where a lot of his men are waiting. Tommy fights through the men and corners Sergio, killing him in style. No! Chaos then ensued for weeks after the death of Sergio. The mobs were firmly at war, and Morello went underground and into hiding. That is until Morello was due to host a charity gala in the city. Their window of opportunity had arrived. They would take out Morello in front of all the important people in the city, the creme de la creme. That way, everyone in the city will know who is boss. It doesn't exactly go to plan. Morello sees them coming and his driver floors it. Tommy gives chase while Sam and Paulie take care of the cars protecting Morello. They chase him into the city's airport and he boards a plane. If he escapes, it'll be months before they have another shot at him. Tommy shoots out the plane's engines and they have to tail the descending plane and get to Morello before his guys do. They find the plane and Morello, and he's in a sorry state.
Morello like a big ass turd. Finish him.
They finish him off and the war is over. Later that evening, Salieri is distraught but happy.
Oh yeah, Kermit without saying Morello is like a big fat doodle turd.
Guys do. They find the plane and Morello, and he's in a
like a big doodle turd. But we just gotta finish him.
Sorry state. They finish him off and the war is over. Later that evening, Salieri is distraught but happy the war is over. Morello was his friend at the end of the day, but business is business.
He wasn't your friend. He was a snake. A backdoor.
3 years later,
that wanted nobody to get past him. Bye.
Later in 1938, business is fairly good for Salieri. Tommy is paying his dues, but he pays part of Paulie's too. Salieri tells Tommy not to pay his tab ever again. That's Paulie's responsibility. Anyway, to business. There's a new threat, a new governor. He's threatening to come down hard on Salieri's businesses. The governor needs to be taken care of, so Tommy needs to enter an old derelict prison, go to the tower, and take him out using a sniper rifle. He completes the hit, but police end up swarming the place, but Tommy manages to evade them and gets back home. The following morning, Tommy and Sarah talk. Apparently the governor Tommy killed was instrumental in passing the 19th Amendment, which gave Sarah and all the other women in America the right to vote. Tommy seems to be having doubts about the life. At the bar, a meeting is called and Salieri has got a load of cigars coming into the city that have been impounded by customs at the docks. Tommy comments that it seems a bit small time for them. Salieri mentions that the cigars are just a cover for a shipment of diamonds. The feds haven't found the diamonds, so they need to be quick. During the trip to the docks, Paulie reveals that he has plans. Big plans. He wants to pull a bank job. He's been planning it for months. Tommy objects and says he doesn't want to get involved, and neither does Sam, saying the Don would never sanction it. Paulie says that they just shouldn't tell the Don, but Sam and Tommy still don't want to get involved. They get to the docks and steal a customs truck, and Tommy is tasked with sneaking into the warehouse and finding the cigars. He does, and they load them onto the truck. But the alarms go off and the cops have set up roadblocks in the area. They evade the roadblocks and drive back to the warehouse, but they're in for a shock. One of the crates broke open and the contents aren't what they expected. There are no diamonds, but there are drugs. The Don essentially lied to them. He arrives, but they all play dumb. Nonetheless, they are all annoyed they put their necks on the line for drugs. Paulie is more annoyed, and this reinforces his desire to carry out the bank job that he's been planning. On the train ride back, Paulie opens up to Tommy and says that he's getting older and has nothing to show for it. He's tired of getting shot at and it's wearing him out. He wants to leave the life and start his own pizzeria, but he needs the money from the Grand Imperial Bank job to do so. Tommy can't let Paulie do it alone, so Tommy reluctantly agrees to help his friend, due to Tommy also having reservations about his own life. The day of the bank job arrives and they execute their plan. Tommy escorts the manager to the vault, but a shootout takes place. But eventually, Paulie and Tommy enter the vault and get the cash. They fight their way out of the bank and escape. They part ways and Paulie takes the cash with him and tells Tommy to go to his place the next morning to split it. The next morning arrives and Tommy has already made plans to leave the city with his family. He said they should get away for a few days. Tommy arrives at Paulie's, but the residents are talking about a commotion and Paulie's door is cracked open. Tommy finds Paulie dead and the money is gone. The phone rings and it's Sam. Tommy tells him that Paulie is dead and Sam tells Tommy it's because Salieri found out about the bank job and had Paulie killed. Tommy asks Sam a favour, to give him some cash to leave the city and tells Sam to meet him at the city gallery. Tommy goes over there, but it's a setup. Sam is there with some of Salieri's guys and he's been sent by Salieri to kill Tommy, due to his betrayal of the family. Sam reveals that he killed Paulie. Sam also reveals that the Don found out about Tommy letting Frank go, but the Don had Frank killed. Not only that, but he found out about Michelle, and had her killed too, after she foolishly returned to the city. Sam then leaves the men to deal with Tommy, and he delivers arguably the best line in the Mafia series.
Don't let him suffer, boys. He's my buddy.
Tommy breaks free and kills Salieri's guys and tracks Sam down. With Sam dying, he tells Tommy that he'll never be safe and he'll be living in fear for the rest of his life, that Salieri's power will outlive the Don. Sam reminisces about the good times, but the moment he mentions Paulie's name, Tommy kills him. After this, Tommy flees and goes to Europe with his family. It doesn't take him long until he's back in Lost Heaven though, and he makes contact with a detective, Detective Norman. Over the course of a few hours, Tommy tells Norman everything he got up to with the Salieri crime family. Detective Norman has doubts about believing what Tommy has to say, but Tommy reminds him of what this could mean for his career. In exchange for Tommy's testimony and a shortened sentence, he testifies against the people he once considered family, and around 80 gang members were put on trial, including Ralphie and Vinny. Some were even sent to death row and condemned to the electric chair. Salieri himself got life imprisonment. Tommy thought that if they were all in prison, then they couldn't get to him or his family, as Tommy was himself sentenced.
Bro, that's crazy, bro. I damn. OP cycle. A lot of people don't realize that, man.
To 8 years in prison at a location kept secret under a no-contact order. His own wife and daughter couldn't even visit him. But what evidence did Tommy have? It was the account books. Tommy still had them all those years. Every piece of business that the Don did was in those books. He was banged to rights. And then in 1946, Tommy Angelo was released from prison, and he and his family moved to live in a residential suburb in the city of Empire Bay, where he took up a job working as a cab driver, and he and his family got new identities. We'll keep our focus on Empire Bay. It's the year 1940.
Hey, this ringtone, this sound and that gave me like LA North vibes. So I'm gonna hit up LA North for y'all too, man. Let me know if you wanna see LA North on the channel, man. Big Quadre though.
43, and Vittorio Antonio Scaletta, or Vito, is making ends meet and is committing petty crime alongside his childhood friend Joe Barbaro. They're robbing a jewelry store and are spotted by a police officer who chases them. Vito ends up getting pinched, and Joe gets away with the jewelry. America is in the throes of World War II, and they were looking for recruits that could speak Italian and could help with the invasion of Sicily. Vito was given the choice of going to prison or joining the army. He chose the latter. Before we go any further, let's look into Vito's early years and how he ended up in America. Vittorio Antonio Scaletta was born in Sicily in 1925. He had a sister, Francesca. The family was pretty hard up and didn't have much money, so his father decided it was time to move away to America, to Empire Bay. Vito was fascinated by Empire Bay, but he had a different view when it came to their neighborhood. Their apartment was a dump, but it was there as a young child that Vito got his first glimpse of the Mafia. Vito's father worked at the port for the same man who arranged their immigration to the United States. Despite him working hard, Vito's father spent most of their money on alcohol due to him having a drink problem. His father eventually died after working himself to death. Vito then went to school and learned English, and it was here that he met the kid who would become his best friend, Joe. They were both very poor, and since there wasn't much work around Empire Bay, they would grow up and steal things in order to survive. This leads us back to the present day. Vito was shipped off to Sicily at 18 years of age to fight against the Italian and German armies. He was involved in Operation Husky and was assigned to the 504th Parachute Regiment. They were due to drop over the southern coast of Sicily but got hit by flak and had to be dropped behind enemy lines, and only 3 of them made it. They teamed up with the local resistance and helped fight against the dictator Mussolini's soldiers with the aim of liberating the town of San Celeste. Vito takes out a load of soldiers with an MG but has to retreat after being fired upon by a tank. He plays dead whilst Italian soldiers turn up and execute survivors, but a tank turns up, and Vito gets another glimpse of the Mafia, this time at their influence and power. A very powerful man named Don Carlo, who is head of the Sicilian Mafia, turns up and demands the Italian soldiers surrender, and such is the respect that they have for him, they immediately do so. Vito survives but is transferred to an army hospital and is discharged for 1 month while he recovers, with the view that he will rejoin again after he's healed. Joe meets him at the station, and he takes Vito to a bar where he gives Vito a coming home present. He gifts him fake discharge papers so that Vito doesn't have to return to the army. Vito returns home to his mother and sister and leaves the following day to find his sister being harassed by a man. The two have a fight and Vito forces the guy to run off. His sister states that before their father died, he'd left them with a debt of $2,000 that he took out from a loan shark, which is about 35 grand in today's money. Vito goes to see Joe and details the situation his family is in, and Joe takes him to get his discharge papers from a guy named Giuseppe, along with a set of lockpicks, and Joe takes Vito to steal a car for him to have, and they get it resprayed. He then takes Vito to see a junkyard owner called Mike Brewski who buys stolen cars. Vito earns a few $100 by stealing a car for Mike so he can use the parts. This kind of work is contrary to his mother's wishes for him. She calls the following day and she wants him to work down at the docks like his father did, breaking his back stacking crates for a man named Derek Pappalardo, known as Fat Derek, the union boss. He tries it out but it's not for him at all. He tells Derek's right-hand man, Steve, that he'll just work for Joe instead, but Steve takes Vito to speak with Derek. Derek calls Joe to confirm that Joe knows Vito and he vouches for him. It seems that Joe has been busy and has quite a bit of influence. Derek tasks Vito with roughing up some rebellious workers who haven't paid their barber's fee for their haircuts. Vito gets paid for his work, but his life is about to change direction. Derek tells Vito to meet Joe at a place called Freddy's, and Joe introduces Vito to a man named Henry Tomasino. Henry is a soldato for the Clemente crime family, one of 3 mafia families in Empire Bay. But before we go further, I should explain a little bit of the history of Empire Bay in regard to the Mafia and how their influence grew in coming to control large areas of the city.
We went without a health plan for a long time.
That's crazy, bro.
Having kids was definitely the game changer there. Now our plan gives us peace of mind for $0 a month.
New law, lower prices. Healthcare.gov. Enroll by December 15th.
Empire Bay is thought to be a city located on the east coast of the United States, and it is thought to have been founded in 15...
No, it's New York City, bro. Everybody know Empire Bay is New York City.
1947 by an Italian explorer and was initially named Porto Romano. That was until the 17th century when it fell under Dutch rule in 1694, when the British took over and renamed the city Empire Bay. The British ruled Empire Bay until the end of the American Revolutionary War. The immigration boom then happened in the 19th century, and then city districts were formed in line with the different groups of immigrants. The city would soon end up with a diverse population of around 7 million people. One of these immigrants arriving in the city would be Alberto Clemente. Clemente killed a police captain in his hometown of Palermo in Italy for his uncle in 1920, and he fled to Empire Bay. Using his uncle's reputation and contacts in the Mafia underworld, Clemente rose through the ranks during the Prohibition by smuggling liquor. All Mafia families in Empire Bay are under the governing body of an organisation called the Commission. They oversee and settle disputes between families. In 1929, Alberto Clemente got the go-ahead from the Commission to form his own crime family, but his crime family never really gained that big of a foothold in the city. There were two families ruling Empire Bay at that point: the Moretti crime family, for which the Don was Tommaso Moretti, and the Vinci crime family, for which the Don was Frank Vinci. At some point during the 1930s, alcohol sales decreased in the city, and the Moretti and Vinci families went to war over what was left of the money-making opportunities. This war lasted 2 years and was declared over when Carlo Falcone, a capo from the Moretti family and the Vinci family consigliere Leo Galante, conspired to assassinate Tommaso Moretti. They placed a bomb under his car and the hit was a success. Falcone assumed control of the Moretti family's operations and founded the Falcone crime family. The Moretti era was finished, so at the time of the game's plot taking place, there are 3 families: Clemente, Falcone, and Vinci. Alright, let's get back into the story. Tomasino says he's got a job for Vito. He wants him to break into the Office of Price Administration, which is a US government office, and steal gas ration stamps. He says they'll make good money off of them due to the gas shortages in the city. Vito pulls it off, but he gets back to Henry, and he's furious to find that the gas stamps expire at midnight, so Vito has to drive to various gas stations in the area and sell them. It's this action which leads to Vito getting deeper into the Mafia lifestyle. The next day, Vito finds a note from Joe telling him to meet him at Freddy's in the evening and to bring some lockpicks. At Freddy's, they meet with a man named Luca Guarino, who is a capo for the Clemente family. He tasks Vito and Joe with getting some money back from a jewelry store owner who borrowed the money from Clemente to open his store. Vito and Joe's job is to rob the store so they can claw back the money that way. During the robbery though, Vito and Joe are interrupted by the O'Neill gang, an Irish gang who tell the pair that they are robbing the store, and they tell them to leave. The police turn up though, and Vito and Joe make off with the jewelry. They have a shootout with the cops and Vito and Joe escape. The job was a success. But success brings more work, and Luca this time tasks Vito and Joe to deal with a man named Sidney Penn, a man who runs a distillery and who is refusing to share his profits with Clemente.
Sure, honey bun.
What's more is that he's blackmailing Clemente, threatening to turn over crucial evidence against.
Yeah, they call them niggas the fat man. The fat man.
Clemente if he attempts anything. Luca says that if they pull the job off well, he'll see that they get accepted
Fat man. Sidney Penn.
into the Clemente crime family, but they both need to pay him $5,000 initiation first. Each. Vito, Joe and Henry take care of Sidney Penn, but Henry is shot and bleeding out. They drive him to a Mafia doctor named El Greco. The job was a success and Vito has the $2,000 to pay off his family's debt. He gives it to his sister to pay off the loan sharks. On February 26, 1945, Vito is leaving Joe's apartment when he's grabbed by 3 police officers, and they arrest him for the illegal distribution of federal ration stamps. Whilst this was happening, Joe was, debriefing a lady of the night in his apartment, and he sees Vito being taken by the police. Joe tries to call Henry, but Luca is there instead, and Luca tells Joe that Vito got pinched because one of the gas station attendants that Vito sold the ration stamps to squealed on him. Joe goes to find the attendant and tries to teach him a lesson, but the attendant slaps Joe in the head and drives off. A chase ensues by car and then on foot. Joe has pretty good cardio for a big guy and catches up with the attendant. He tells the guy to leave town by the evening and to never come back. The attendant says it won't make a difference, and after some persuasion inflicted by Joe, he learns that there's someone who knows about a lot more than just the gas stamps, and this person could take down everybody. Joe finds out the location of this rat. He's called Richie Mazzeo, and he's a former soldato of the Clemente crime family who has sold out Alberto Clemente and the family. Joe tracks Richie to the Culver Reservoir. After a chase across the ice, Joe takes care of him. All Joe's efforts are fruitless though, as 3 months later Vito has his date in court and is sentenced to 10 years in prison. Vito arrives at Hartman Federal Penitentiary with the other fresh meat. It's not long until he's recognised. Remember the O'Neills, the gang who were trying to rob the same store as Joe and Vito? Well, they were caught and locked up. It seems old Brian O'Neill blames Vito for his incarceration and he wants revenge. Vito is in a desperate situation and in need of protection before O'Neill is able to exact his revenge. Remember I mentioned the name Leo Galante earlier? The consigliere of the Vinci crime family? Well, he's also serving a 5-year stretch for fixing fights. Vito and O'Neill have a fight in the yard. Leo sees potential in Vito, so he protects him and teaches him how to fight. A bit of time into his prison sentence, Vito sees O'Neill in the gym. The two fight in order to settle the score. Vito is kicking his ass, and O'Neill, not wanting to take the L, pulls a knife.
Look at you, soft. Brock Lesnar looking at him.
This backfires though, as Vito easily overpowers him and kills O'Neill. I guess that settles that. This stay in prison actually does Vito a lot of good. He's able to truly learn the deep roots of the Mafia and how the families work and operate. Due to Leo's close friendship with Vito and his connections, in 1951, Leo is able to secure Vito an early release. Vito meets up with Joe, who has set him up with an apartment, and then soon after introduces him to Eddie Scarpa, the underboss of the Falcone crime family. Eddie has them doing a job selling goods off the back of a truck. All is going well, but a local gang called the Greasers turn up claiming it's their turf and they torch the truck. Joe executes their apparent leader and they chase the Greasers. However, they lose them. They contact Eddie and he's furious. He tells them to meet Steve, Fat Derek's right-hand man, at a greaser bar called the Crazy Horse. They grab some Thompson machine guns and shoot up the bar, torching it afterwards. They have tracked the Greasers to the old foundry.
Damn, they shot that motherfucker up.
And after a shootout, they take all of them out. Needing $2,000 to pay back Eddie for the truck that was destroyed, they take 2 of the Greasers' hot rods and sell them to Fat Derek at the docks. They then go to the Maltese Falcon Hotel and pay Eddie back. Not long after this, Vito gets a big job. He's tasked by Don Falcone himself to take out Luca Guarino, the guy who is a capo for the Clemente crime family, the guy who gave him the job of robbing the jewelry store. You see, Luca has been making waves and has been trying to take over the Falcone family's drug operation. He kidnapped 3 of Falcone's men with the intention of torturing them. Vito gets there and Luca has already killed one of the men, but Vito manages to save the other 2, and after a tense gunfight with Luca's crew, Vito eventually kills Luca. Not long after, Vito is told to wear a nice suit because something big is about to happen. He meets Eddie and Joe at the Maltese Falcon, and Joe reveals that Mr. Falcone is going to bring them into the family that evening. They will become made men, good fellas, or wise guys as they're also known. But first, Vito has a visitor, his old pal Leo.
Why did Leo bring him and Joe under the Vinci family? I feel like that should be a more straight ahead, because he's the one that did him a favor, saved him.
Galante. Leo was one of the main reasons Vito and Joe were being brought into the Falcone family. You see, despite him being the consigliere of the Vinci family, Leo wanted Vito to join the Vinci family, but due to Joe having been working for Falcone for a while, Leo recommended Vito to join them instead. Vito and Joe are officially made men. But with the big title comes big responsibility. Vito and Joe are tasked by their new boss to go to the Empire Arms Hotel and plant a bomb in a conference room in order to take out their target. Their target? Alberto Clemente. The reason? Well, Falcone had set up a cushy business selling heroin and marijuana to the people of Empire Bay. Clemente wanted to force his way in and ended up stealing a load of Clemente's customers. So, Falcone reacted. Vito and Joe enter the hotel disguised as janitors and manage to infiltrate the top floor. They plant the bomb and wait on a window cleaning platform for Clemente to enter the conference room. They detonate it, but Clemente isn't killed, forcing Vito and Joe to enter the building to finish Clemente. They fight their way through the hotel and chase Clemente through the streets of Empire Bay. They finish him, therefore releasing his grip on Falcone's drug
Dumped the whole clip in him with that time.
operation. Sometime later, Henry Tomasino approaches Vito. He is concerned about the Clemente family collapsing after the hit on the Don and wants to switch allegiances to the Falcone family. Vito talks to Eddie to say that the Vinci crime family is planning on making a move on Falcones, but that they don't know when or how yet. Vito sets up a meeting between Henry and Eddie, and Henry informs Eddie that Luca Guarino, rest in peace, said that something should be done about Falcone's dirty business, and tried to turn Vinci against Falcone. Eddie tells Henry that if he wants to join them, he must prove himself by carrying out a hit. One small problem: the target is Leo Galante. Naturally, Vito, being good friends with Leo, refuses to take part in the hit. Knowing that Henry will be on his way to take Leo out, Vito goes to warn him. He gets there just in time as Henry and his guys arrive, and Vito and Leo hide. Henry discovers them though, and they go to the kitchen. Vito reluctantly leaves Henry with Leo, who seems to have accepted his fate. Vito hears a gunshot and fears the worst, but Henry walks out and tells Vito that he owes him big. He spared Leo. Leo says that he and Henry made a deal, but Leo
It's a lot of spirits in the Mafia, bro.
has to disappear to leave the city for good. Vito drives Leo to the train station and Leo sets out for Lost Heaven. Back at home, Vito's past catches up with him. Out for revenge after Vito killed Brian O'Neill, the gang under new leadership arrive at Vito's and torch his place. He loses everything except his life and escapes, making his way to Joe's apartment. Joe lends Vito one of his awful shirts and some clothing, and they plan their revenge. They make their way to a bar called the Hill of Tara and confront the Irish. They deal with them, and due to Vito having nowhere to go and not a penny to his name, Joe puts him up in his friend Marty's run-down apartment. Marty went with Joe and Vito on the Empire Arms hotel hit, but was killed by Clemente's guys while waiting for the car. A few months later, Vito and Joe meet with Henry in the Lincoln Park in order to complete a drug deal. They visit a loan shark called Bruno Levine and borrow some money from him in order for them to be able to set everything up. Their initial drug deal, purchasing some heroin from the Empire Bay Triads, goes okay. Well, that is until some fake cops turn up and ambush them after the deal. The trio kill all the fake cops, there were a lot of them, and they make their way to a drop at a warehouse. After this, Henry, Vito and Joe make a lot of money. They are doing well for themselves. But Falcone eventually finds out about their little earner and is furious. He wants his cut, which amounts to $60,000. Henry then asks Vito and Joe to meet him in the park. But when they get there, it's chaos. Henry is being hacked to death by the Triads and they've stolen Falcone's cut. Joe and Vito kill the Triads but see the boss, Mr. Wong, drive past. They follow him to his headquarters at the Red Dragon restaurant. Vito and Joe fight their way through the restaurant and confront Wong. Wong tells Vito and Joe that Henry was actually an FBI informant, which is why they took him out. After a tip from their inside man in the Federal Bureau.
Oh, shit, my bad. You gonna have to play through on Mafia 2, bro? For sure, bro. Every time I, bro. Yeah, well, play through for Mafia 2. I played Mafia 2 and that one, and I barely remember it. We gotta play Mafia 1, we gotta play Mafia 2. We got so many gameplay coming up. Let's go, man. Let's go.
Of narcotics. Wong says the money is somewhere else, but before they can get it out of him, Hothead Joe shoots and kills Wong. Still reeling from the fact that Henry was a rat, Vito and Joe need money to pay Carlo off, and to pay Bruno the loan shark back. They decide to raise some money to pay Bruno off first. The following day, looking for a way to make some money, Vito receives a call from Joe. He's got a job from Eddie which will make them a lot of money. The job? To drive out to the suburbs and kill a rat. The rat? Tommy Angelo. It seems that old Salieri is still pulling strings from behind bars and wanted him taken care of, so Vito and Joe drive out to his neighborhood and shoot him.
Mr. Angelo. Mr. Salieri sends his regards.
This job didn't pay near enough, a few grand, but they need more. So Vito goes to see Fat Derek, who gives him a job sorting out some dock workers who are planning a strike. Vito hears something that stops him in his tracks.
Job should be back to work in the next 10 minutes. You see, Vito, all they do is bitch and moan.
Vito? You're Skelet's boy, ain't you? Your dad used to talk about you all the time. You look just like him. But what are you doing working for this bastard? After what he did to your old
Shut
man?
your fucking mouth right now. Don't listen to him, Vito. He's full of shit. Come on, let's go.
Full of shit, huh? That bastard killed your father,
Damn, ain't you working on in the same family as him? He killed your family. He's the reason why you into this mess, is into this street life in a mafia family. Cause he killed your father, bro. Gotta go kill him, bro. You gotta kill him now, bro.
They're just trying to get under your skin, Derek.
Oh yeah, it's time, bro. Once you put that gun up, you gonna use that. Bro, okay?
Hey, stop pointing that gun
Why
at
don't
me.
you ask him how your dad drowned that night?
We seen him take a walk with Steve. And then Steve come back alone. And all wet.
Stop pointing that thing at me.
What the hell happened with my father, Derek?
You nuts or what? Who are you gonna trust, me or these now unemployed losers? We known each other for a long time, Vito. Think of all the
You
things.
all wet, Steve. You dive in and try to save him?
Because he wouldn't stay underwater.
Come out, shut! Vito, you swore an oath. I was there. Our loyalty to the family is greater than to our own families.
Tell that to my mother.
Should I kill him? No, not here. We'll settle things with him later.
Enraged, Vito goes after Fat Derek, kills Steve, and eventually kills Derek too. He helps himself to what's inside Derek's safe, $22,500. Having nearly raised the money to pay off Bruno and Falcone, Vito scrapes together the rest and goes to Joe's apartment, but Joe isn't there. Vito goes to see Eddie at the Maltese Falcon to see if he knows where Joe is. Eddie tells Vito that their actions involving Henry and killing the triads at the restaurant along with Wong has brought a lot of heat onto the family, and as a result, a full-on war has begun between the Mafia and the triads. Vito lies to Eddie and says he knows nothing about what Henry was up to and tells Eddie that neither him nor Joe were involved. Vito goes to see his pal Giuseppe, who says that Joe went to see Giuseppe about a job, but that whilst he was there, some guys arrived and took Joe away, and they said Mr. Vinci wanted a word with him. Vito goes to a bar frequented by Vinci's family and is knocked out and taken to a construction site by two of Vinci's men. Joe is there, but he's in bad shape. Vinci is also there. Vinci tells them that the triads are threatening to kill him and he wants to know why. With Vinci's men distracted, Joe and Vito break free and fight
Cause they killed them, you know what I'm saying? They killed the boys.
their way through the construction site, eventually escaping. After dropping Joe off at the doctor, El Greco reveals some worrying news. One of their guys is with them and he's been messed up by Vinci's guys too. Joe gives Vito his half of the money and Vito goes to pay off Bruno. Back at home, Vito accepts that the truth will come out eventually and they'll have Falcone after them, as well as Vinci and the triads. The following morning, Vito gets a call from Eddie.
Hey, imagine having 3 whole families after you, man. At that point, nigga, I would have go made my own family, bro. I would have had the Scaletta family. You know?
Says that Carlo Falcone wants to meet Vito at the planetarium on the outskirts of the city. On his way,
Scarletta, Scar family.
Vito is approached by a man who beckons him to a car. Inside the car is Leo Galante. Galante is with a man named Mr. Chu, a member of the Triads. Leo says that Vito has started a
Mr. Chu.
war, but Vito is still playing dumb.
What the fuck you looking at? What the fuck you looking at, nigga? Nigga, I'm right here. What the fuck are you looking at? The fuck?
Leo explains that the FBI are breathing down everyone's necks, and that includes the Triads too. He explains that Henry being a rat has caused the feds to go after Carlo. Leo is paying Vito back for his loyalty
Nigga really got missing eyes.
and says that he has one chance to make it right.
What Mr. Chu looking at, bro?
Leo tells Vito to kill Carlo Falcone. The commission wants
Man, they swerving this bitch. Slow down, nigga. Feel right the hoe.
Vito dead. Mr. Chu also wants Vito dead. And on top of that, to the commission and to Falcone, Vito vouched for a rat. Vito arrives at the observatory and fights his way through Falcone's men, and he enters the planetarium. Falcone is there, and someone puts a gun to Vito's head. It's Joe. Falcone has clearly got in Joe's head, but Vito appeals to his friend and they both spring an attack on Falcone and his guys. After a brief shootout, all Falcone's men are dead. Vito approaches the dying Falcone and finishes him off. He walks outside with Joe and they are picked up by Leo. They split Vito and Joe up and leave in separate cars. On their car journey, Vito watches as the car with Joe in it turns off, and Leo says to Vito that the deal they made was only for him. Vito assumes that Joe has been taken to be killed. The deal in question was negotiated with the Triads and the Commission that Vito would be exiled from Empire Bay and would move to New Bordeaux, Louisiana.
That's bogus. Leo, bogus.
To serve under a new Mafia family.
Leo.
Meet Lincoln Clay.
Lincoln Clay. Okay.
Lincoln Clay was born in 1945.
Lincoln Clay, okay.
Not much is known about his family, but for the fact that his mother was Dominican, and there's speculation that his father may have been Italian. Anyway, at the age of 2, Lincoln was abandoned by his mother and left in the care
His father is Joe Barbaro.
of the St. Michael's Orphanage.
Vito brother, best friend. No, Vito best friend. That's, you know what I'm saying, brothers, like.
In the French War district of New Bordeaux, Louisiana. He stayed there until the age of 11, at which point the orphanage shut down. He was taken in by a man named Sammy Robinson.
Because they already said that Mafia 4 is still scheduled to come out, but after Mafia, the old country come out, it's gonna be Mafia 4. Alright, so they already confirmed Mafia 4 gonna be out. I was doing my little research, man.
The boss of the Black Mob. Lincoln was seen to be part of the family, and Sammy, along with his wife Perla, raised Lincoln as their very own. They had another son, Ellis, and he and Lincoln became not just best friends, but brothers. Lincoln was involved in minor gang-related mischief during his early years, but needing to find his own identity, he joined the US Army in 1964 and enlisted to fight in Vietnam. He proved himself proficient in combat, and after initially serving in the 223rd Infantry, he later joined the 5th Special Forces Group. Eventually, Lincoln was discharged from the army. He returned to New Bordeaux in the year 1968, and that is where we begin the story of Mafia 3. In February 1968, New Bordeaux is about to celebrate Mardi Gras, and Lincoln sits outside the train station. He is approached by a former US Marine who served in the Pacific. He speaks to Lincoln and gives him some advice, that just because you're home doesn't mean you're home. He is of course talking about PTSD. He looks around and says that people walking around, regular civilians, just don't understand and will never understand the effects of war. The man departs and Lincoln's brother Ellis arrives to pick him up in his car, which Ellis has been looking after in Lincoln's absence. After filling Lincoln in on the goings-on in the Delray Hollow, their home district, they arrive at Sammy's bar. They toast him being back home. A close friend and confidant of Lincoln, Father James Ballard, also welcomes him home. The following day, Lincoln wakes up from a PTSD-induced nightmare and walks in on a conversation between Sammy and Ellis, where they are describing their financial issues. Ellis storms off and Sammy tells Lincoln they are having trouble with a Haitian gang, but despite the trouble, he has it under control. Father James arrives and tells Lincoln that he needs his help. His church has a kitchen set up called Warm Hearts, and it helps feed the community. Lincoln is serving gumbo when some men attack the kitchen. It's clear Sammy doesn't have it under control at all. Lincoln takes care of them and discovers confirmation that the attackers were Haitian. In 1957, Haiti elected Francois Papadoc Duvalier as president. His presidency was under threat only a year later, and his regime thwarted a coup d'etat in 1958. This led to his regime turning Haiti into an autocracy, and he created a secret police. In the late 60s, Haitian refugees fled this regime. A lot came to settle in New Bordeaux and became productive members of society, but amongst the good people were violent criminals, and these criminals made up the foundations of what would become the Haitian mob. At first they would rob people's homes, but as they grew more powerful, the Haitian mob would take advantage of Sammy and the Black Mob, losing influence in the Delray Hollow, and saw Sammy and the Black Mob as weak. The Black Mob were loyal to Sal Marcano of the Marcano crime family. We'll get to the Marcano crime family shortly, don't worry. And the people of the Hollow didn't really like Marcano. The Haitians were not loyal to Marcano and stood up to his crime family, and public support for the Haitian mob was actually...
I see over the years now, man, You hear me? Now, black mobs and mafia, you feel what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? But it was first white gangs first, you know what I'm saying? Still white gangs to this day. They do a lot of crimes, you know what I'm saying? We don't know race, but let's go past that. You know, we see that it's not just families no more like back in like Mafia 2, Mafia 1 days and probably before. It's not family anymore. It's now we in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. You hear what I'm saying? Now it's more about crime, family. Also, that's what the white gangs is. Crime, family. You know what I'm saying? It went from one family that was committing crimes, right? Still. But now it's predominantly a crime family, which is predominantly crime. You know what I'm saying? See how this goes. You know what I'm saying?
Actually growing.
Not to bring race in it, but you gotta see how that what it is. It's history. It's in the history books. This game's played off of real history. Yeah, you dig what I'm saying? You kind of catch my strays.
Fast. Anyway, back into the story. Lincoln returns to Sammy and is furious. He tells him they got jumped by the Haitians who tried to kill him, so Lincoln demands Sammy tell him what really is going on. Sammy explains that the Haitians were going after something called the Black Lottery. This was a racket that Sammy's mob ran for decades, and the racket which brought them the most money. It was essentially a tax on the poor people of the Hollow, and the members of the black mob would sometimes force people in the Hollow to take part. This is where their partnership with Marcano comes in, as Marcano took part of the profit earned from this racket. Ellis comes in, and Sammy, after learning that they tried to kill Lincoln at the kitchen, has had enough of the Haitians. It gets worse though. Because of the Haitians going after the Black Lottery, the black mob haven't paid Marcano his cut in 3 months. Sammy finally agrees that something needs to be done, so he tells Lincoln and Ellis to deal with the Haitians. They are holed up deep in the Louisiana Bayou, in an old abandoned salt mining town, so Sammy sorts them out with guns and ammo, and Lincoln and Ellis go to the bayou with the aim of taking out the leader of the Haitian mob. After sneaking his way through their town, Lincoln confronts the boss Baca and breaks his neck. Baca has been keeping someone in captivity, and this woman says that Baca has been keeping her in the cupboard as his sex slave. She runs off and Lincoln has to fight his way through the town, with Ellis arriving just in time to pick him up, and they drive back to Sammy's. Sammy's been drinking, and he says he checked the list of the deceased from the Vietnam War every night while Lincoln was away. He asks Sammy what they're going to do about Sal's money. Sammy says that Sal called and asked to meet him at the country club. Lincoln drives over to the country club and is greeted by Georgie Marcano, Sal Marcano's son. I guess before we go any further, we should talk about Sal Marcano. Salvatore, or Sal Marcano, is a Louisiana native with Sicilian roots. He was born in Baton Rouge, but moved to New Bordeaux in the mid-1920s. A stint in prison for breaking and entering at age 17 led to him forming a friendship with a powerful mobster called Giuseppe Carrillo. Carrillo promised that after they'd done their respective sentences, Carrillo would bring him into the Carrillo crime family, the biggest, most influential family in New Bordeaux. But there was a problem. Sal's father Valerio was a soldato in the Carrillo crime family, but was a gambling addict and had run up huge debts with the Carrillos. As a result of him not being able to pay, Giuseppe ordered a hit on Valerio. But here's where it gets complicated. Sal actually saved Carrillo's life in prison, so Carrillo knew that he owed Sal and offered to wipe his father's debt. But Sal rejected Carrillo's offer, knowing full well what it meant for his father. Lo and behold, Valerio was killed by Carrillo. Sal then got out of prison in 1934 and gathered his brothers, lied to them and told them Giuseppe had killed their father for no reason, and declared war on the Carrillo crime family. Then, not long after, Sal, his brothers and some associates killed Giuseppe Carrillo and 18 of his men in cold blood at a restaurant in the French Ward district of New Bordeaux, a killing which would later go on to be known as the All Saints' Day Massacre. Sal then capitalized on the opportunity and took over New Bordeaux. His brothers became his capos, and Sal became the don of the Marcano crime family. Sal was a married man and they had one child, Georgie, but his wife died in the late 1950s. Sal would go on to raise Georgie and prepare him for the life. Sal's crime family had his capos running districts in New Bordeaux, and Sal let the local gangs run the smaller districts in exchange for kickback or a cut of the profits. This is how Sammy and the Black Mob ended up running the Hollow. There was another local gang that ran another district, under Marcano obviously, and this was the Irish Mob. But back into the story. It seems that Georgie and Lincoln go back a bit as they reminisce about good times. Lincoln meets with Sal Marcano. Now you may recognise this guy. It's our old buddy Vito Scaletta, and he's been through quite a lot since being exiled from Empire Bay. But again, we'll get to that soon. Vito, due to his military experience himself during World War II, is interested in Lincoln's military experience and seems surprised by Lincoln telling him he was Special Forces. Marcano clearly doesn't like Vito.
Christ, that guy's an asshole. Fucking carpetbagger. Commission sent him down here from Empire Bay about 15 years back. He's been a pain in my goddamn ass ever since.
The reason for Lincoln being there was because Sal Marcano is planning a heist at the reserve, robbing the vault. Georgie explains that Vito has put up a large part of the money to pull the job off, and he got them the combination to the vault. Georgie also mentions a guy called Danny Burke and his old man are in on the job, so Lincoln needs to go and see them. Sal tells Lincoln that he thinks Lincoln should run the Hollow, after hearing that Lincoln took care of the Haitians so efficiently, but Lincoln's loyalty to Sammy runs deep, so he declines. Marcano is disappointed, but Marcano still wants him on the heist, and says that after they get their score, Sammy's debt will be paid. Sal Marcano's motive behind this heist is that he actually wants to leave the mob life and go legit. He doesn't want Georgie to live the life he has, so he wants to open a casino, and he wants the money from the heist to make that a reality. Gambling at this point is illegal in Louisiana, but that's something we'll cover later on in the story. Anyway, Lincoln goes to see Danny and Thomas Burke at their iron and metal business. They are doing a test run for a drill that they will use to bust through the bottom of the vault from the sewers which run underneath the reserve. The plan is that whilst Ellis and Danny are drilling through the bottom of the vault, Georgie and Lincoln will be disguised as security and will deliver cash to the reserve and infiltrate the reserve that way. Sal Marcano sorted out uniforms and a Federal Reserve truck for Lincoln and Georgie, so the plan is set. The following day, it's Mardi Gras. A lot of the police in the city will be busy at the festival, so it's the perfect time for a heist. Disguise is on, and with the truck, Lincoln and Georgie load Vito's cash into the truck, so it looks like they're delivering something legit. They then drive to the reserve. Lincoln grabs the cash and they follow the guard to the furnaces. Lincoln takes the guards out and they open the vault. Georgie sets off the alarm though, and Lincoln has to hold it down. He manages, but they're pinned down and need to escape through the hole in the vault, but it's too small. Danny and Ellis have some TNT, so they use it to expand the hole, but this causes the entire vault to fall through the floor and Danny has injured his leg. They all board the speedboat, but the police are onto them, prompting a chase through the sewers. Eventually, they lose the cops and ascend to the streets where Mardi Gras is still happening. Lincoln calls Sammy and says they need a car, and he'll leave one at the grocery store. In order to give the others time to escape with the injured Danny, Lincoln gives them cover by firing his gun in the air and the cops chase him. Lincoln loops round and makes it to the car and they escape. Back at Sammy's bar, Sammy has counted the money and it's over $2 million per split. He split it into takes for everyone. Obviously, Sal's cut is higher due to the money Sammy owed him. Sal walks in with an unknown gentleman who is there to collect Sal's cut. They drink to their success and their new wealth, but Sal shoots Georgie a look. Georgie tells Lincoln that he should have said yes to Sal's order to run the Hollow, and without warning, Georgie shoots Lincoln in the head, but it doesn't kill him. He can only watch as Ellis, Danny and Sammy are brutally executed by Sal, Georgie and the other man. They then set fire to Sammy's bar and Lincoln passes out. He is pulled from the burning building by Father James, who takes him back to his house and nurses him back to health. Lincoln is in bad shape and almost doesn't make it. Truth is that after coming back from Vietnam, Lincoln wasn't even planning to stay in New Bordeaux at all. One of his friends from the army was going to get him a job at a shipyard. The only reason he went back to New Bordeaux was to tell them his plans, but he never got the chance. As Lincoln was getting better, he told Father James to call one of Lincoln's old friends from Vietnam, John Donovan. John Donovan was a Princeton graduate who was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency as a paramilitary officer the following year. He worked alongside another CIA agent called Connor Aldridge on a mission to depose the elected president of Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz, which effectively put an end to the 10-year Guatemalan Revolution in 1954. But this wasn't the last time Donovan would encounter Aldridge. Donovan was sent into Vietnam by the CIA to run covert operations against the Viet Cong in 1963. So was Aldridge. Aldridge's job was to infiltrate the North Vietnamese Army, the NVA, and turn soldiers into double agents. However, Aldridge got disillusioned and turned against the US and betrayed his country, feeding intel to the enemy instead. Donovan found out about Aldridge betraying his country, and Donovan interrogated one of Aldridge's contacts, a guy named Trong. Trong informed Donovan that he was scheduled to meet Aldridge in an alleyway in Saigon, so Donovan killed Trong and took his place. Donovan waited in the alleyway for Aldridge. Aldridge recognized Donovan, and after Donovan said he was going to take him back to his bosses, Aldridge attacked Donovan, but Aldridge bested him and Aldridge ran off when some military policemen interrupted them. Donovan didn't hear anything else from Aldridge after that incident but stayed in Vietnam on assignments. In 1966, during Lincoln's time in the 5th SFG, Donovan crossed paths with Lincoln, who demonstrated incredible combat abilities and fortitude in battle, along with Lincoln's desire to help his friends. The two would then become close friends whilst in Vietnam. But back to the story again. Lincoln is holding a photo of Sal Marcano, looking at it with anger burning in his eyes. Donovan says the plan is to kill Sal Marcano. Father James says, "Fine, kill him, but let that be the end of it." This angers Lincoln. This is because he knows, along with Donovan, that in order to topple someone as powerful as Marcano, you need to take down their entire infrastructure, their entire organization. Lincoln departs and tells Father James that turning the other cheek simply doesn't work in the real world, and leaves with Donovan. On their drive over to Sammy's so Lincoln can pick up his things, Lincoln reveals that he thinks Marcano wanted Lincoln dead because he refused to run the Hollow, and Sal wanted to sever ties with Sammy. They arrive at Sammy's and Donovan tells him to meet him at the motel down the road. Lincoln collects his things, freshens up a bit, and goes to the motel to meet with Donovan. Seems Donovan's been busy. He stole a load of surveillance equipment from the FBI to assist them in tracking and taking down Marcano's network. He set up a tax center. He explains that going after Marcano won't be easy. There are levels beneath Marcano who protect him, and those levels have people beneath them, and so on and so forth. Lincoln is going to have to take New Bordeaux by force, district by district, until Marcano's operation has been weakened enough to take him out. Donovan will be the brains of the operation and Lincoln will be the brawn. Donovan hands Lincoln a clipboard with information regarding the Haitians. Lincoln is surprised as he thought they'd fallen apart after he killed Bakker, but Donovan said they're back up and running, which is a good thing. See that after Sammy was gone, Sal Marcano gave the Delray Hollow to a gang called the Dixie Mafia, an all-white gang of southern criminals with roots stretching back to the Civil War. The Dixie Mafia are wanting to run a heroin racket in the Hollow and are trying to get people in the Hollow hooked on it. This angered the Haitians greatly. The Haitian mob have a new leader, but they've kept the identity of the leader a secret. Hoping to find their leader, Lincoln interrogates a Haitian gang member who tells him that their leader resides at a voodoo shop in the Hollow. Lincoln sits down and waits for their leader. She walks in. The Haitian boss is none other than the woman Lincoln saw at the Haitian camp. Her name is...
Damn. Evil looking. But pretty looking at the same time.
Cassandra. Lincoln tells Cassandra that he wants her to help him kill Sal Marcano. In exchange, Lincoln agrees to help them drive the Dixie Mafia out of the Hollow, and that after they're gone, Lincoln will give the Haitians full control of the Delray Hollow. Cassandra tells him that the boss of the Dixie Mafia is a man named Richie Doucette, but it's personal for Cassandra. Richie Doucette killed her sister. Cassandra says it's too dangerous for Richie Doucette to be in the Hollow, so he moves around a lot, but they operate out of the old theatre, Perla's, named after Sammy's late wife. One of Cassandra's men, known as The Voice, has been staking out the place, so Lincoln meets with him. He tells him that a member of the Dixie Mafia runs it, a guy named Merle Jackson, and that he turned it into a brothel. Jackson has been getting young black women from the Hollow hooked on drugs and has been pimping them out, so Lincoln heads to Perla's. He frees the girls, doing some major damage to the Dixie Mafia's operation. Speaking to The Voice again, Lincoln learns that there are pimps in the Hollow. Lincoln kills the pimps, and just as they suspected, this draws Jackson out of hiding. Lincoln returns to the theatre and fights his way up to the office, confronting Merle Jackson, and he kills him. He phones Cassandra and tells her to send her people to secure the theatre. After this, Lincoln meets with Donovan across from the old church. He tells Lincoln that that is where they are running their heroin operation out of. It's under the supervision of someone called Charlie Kincaid. After interrogating some of Charlie's dealers, destroying the heroin, killing enforcers, and infiltrating the church, Lincoln confronts Kincaid. Lincoln actually recruits Charlie and phones Cassandra, telling her to send more men to take control of the church. He goes to see Cassandra, and it seems that she's been making moves herself. She has captured a Dixie Mafia informant named Jesse. They discover that due to Lincoln destroying the heroin racket and Richie losing control of the Hollow, Georgie Marcano is furious with Richie and wants him dead, so Richie is preparing for a fight and took the rest of the heroin
That nigga look like Joe Connor.
and some men and holed up in the old Baron Saturday's amusement park. Lincoln goes to
Like he dropped the L word all the time.
the park and wipes out all of Richie's men. You may recognize Richie. He is the one who accompanied Sal Marcano to Sammy's bar that night and the man who killed Ellis. Lincoln drags Richie outside, and this happens.
I'm not here to steal your heroin, Richie. I'm here to make you pay for what you did to Sammy and Ellis Robinson.
I didn't have nothing to do with it!
I watched you stab Ellis in the gut. I couldn't do nothing about it then, but I sure as hell can now.
Oh, God damn it! None of that was my idea, you hear? It was all Georgie, him and his old man. They wanted y'all gone, not me. What was I supposed to do? Say no?
Either that or make sure that I was dead.
Oh, no. No, please. Please, listen. Just decent thing would be to let a man get
Suffer the fate that y'all suffer. The people above us.
in a prayer before you kill him.
You can pray on the way up.
You see, Lincoln killed Richie in a very specific way. Due to Lincoln's time in Vietnam, he was trained in psychological warfare. He left Richie hanging from the Ferris wheel as a message to Sal and Georgie. With the hollow
Yeah, that's badass.
taken from the Dixie Mafia and the gang driven out, and their territory handed to Cassandra, it's time for the next phase of Lincoln's plan. He has Cassandra on side. She is now an underboss. Lincoln goes to the motel and talks to Donovan. He offers Lincoln the choice of getting 2 more underbosses on his side, Vito Scaletta and Thomas Burke. Let's start with Vito. Vito had a tough couple of months after the heist. Whilst Lincoln is travelling to meet up with Vito, let's break for a second and have a look at what happened to Vito after he arrived in New Bordeaux. As we discussed, Vito annoyed the wrong people back in Empire Bay, but he was spared only due to his close friendship with Leo Galante, who had a lot of influence in the city. Upon being sent to New Bordeaux, Vito was integrated as a lieutenant within the Marcano crime family at the instruction of the Commission. Sal assigned him the River Row district. Sal wasn't happy about it, as he took an instant dislike to Scaletta, but only accepted Vito into the family out of his huge respect for Leo Galante. After Sal Marcano had gotten rid of Sammy and put the Dixie Mafia in charge of the Hollow, he turned his attention to Vito. Sal wanted to kill Vito, but as Vito is a made man, he can't. Not unless the Commission ordered it. So, Sal came up with a plan. He refused to pay Vito his share of the heist money, meaning that Vito had lost all of his money and life savings. Sal then installed his nephew Michael Greco in River Row as a way to choke Vito's earnings. Now remember, Vito had to pay Sal kickback, and without regular money coming in from rackets, Vito would struggle to pay Sal. Sal did this so that the Commission would sanction a hit on Vito. Very cunning. Vito managed to pay him though, as he had a couple of extra income streams, but he tried for months to goad Sal into killing him. But Sal knew very well what would happen if he carried out an unsanctioned hit on a made man. At some point though, Vito found out about Sal's plan to open a casino in New Bordeaux, a secret he was keeping from the Commission. Sal couldn't afford for this to happen, so Michael Greco and his men ambush Scaletta and lock him in the fridge of a seafood restaurant until the Commission sanction a hit on Vito. And this leads us into the story again. Lincoln arrives in River Row and finds Greco's guys everywhere. After taking them out, he frees Vito from captivity in the freezer. Vito says he'll help Lincoln take down Marcano. In exchange, Lincoln has to help Vito get revenge on Michael Greco. Greco is controlling the dock workers union and a large warehouse filled with valuable goods, and that if Lincoln can take out both of those, then Greco is finished. Lincoln talks to Vito's guys and does what he does best. He destroys the 2 rackets. Lincoln goes to meet up with Vito as he has tracked Michael Greco. Problem is that Greco is in the crosshairs of Marcano after losing the rackets that Lincoln had destroyed. Some of Marcano's guys turn up and try to kill Greco, but he slips away in Lincoln's car. Lincoln and Vito chase him and eventually capture him, taking him back to a warehouse, and Vito
Bro, loafing in your car.
goes to work on him, exacting his revenge. With both Cassandra and Vito on side, it's time for Lincoln to go after the 3rd underboss. In the meantime, Sal Marcano takes a call and finds out some surprising news.
Yeah. You come to me with something like this, Lou, you better be goddamn sure. Lincoln Clay's still alive. Fuck.
That nigga shitting himself.
The 3rd underboss is none other than Thomas Burke. Burke isn't doing well after the death of Danny. Thomas Burke used to run the rackets in Point Verdun for Sal Marcano, but could never join the Mafia family as he was Irish and not Italian. At some point before the heist, his territory was forcefully taken by a mobster under Sal Marcano named Roman the Butcher Barbieri after Burke botched a robbery of stolen car parts. Barbieri took over Point Verdun and permanently busted Burke's leg with a tire iron, causing him to walk with a limp. Burke helped with the heist because he thought it might prompt Sal Marcano into giving him Point Verdun back. Burke is inebriated and doesn't want anything to do with the payback due to what happened to his son. Lincoln takes Burke for a ride and basically scares the crap out of him until Burke agrees to get on board. Lincoln later meets up with Burke at his place of business and tells him about Barbieri. Moving on, Barbieri runs the distillery, moonshine racket, and the slaughterhouse, which is a protection racket. After taking back both of the rackets and giving them back to Burke, the butcher has come to take care of Burke. Lincoln takes him out and Burke drags him off for some retribution. His fate? Well, he died, and his body wasn't found until the mid-1980s. Apparently there was no bone left in his legs. Ouch. Anyway, Burke agrees to help Lincoln go after Marcano, a sit-down.
No bone left in his legs. Damn.
Down is called at an old mansion in the bayou. The three underbosses are there, Cassandra, Vito, and Burke. Naturally, there's a bit of tension. Lincoln calms them all down and reveals that they're going to take down Marcano's entire network, working from the bottom. They'll go after his lieutenants first, then the capos, and then finally Marcano. Lincoln will then split out the districts as he sees fit. Donovan has set up a mobile tax center in the back of a marquee liquor truck, and he tells Lincoln that he'll get as much intel on Marcano's lieutenants as possible. We'll break from the main story whilst Lincoln helps Donovan out with a problem. Lincoln later meets with Donovan, and they drive off to meet one of his old friends at a Cuban restaurant. This is Robert Marshall, an ex-colleague of Donovan's. He's now a bounty hunter. He's got a lead on Connor Aldridge. They have to find a barman named Balmana, but when they enter the restaurant it's a bloodbath. They find Balmana, but he's dead. Balmana used to
Damn. That motherfucker is a bloodbath. That's a massacre.
be a pilot in the Cuban Revolutionary Armed Forces. In 1962, the Navy found him stranded in the Gulf and took him in. He told the CIA everything he knew about Fidel Castro. Lincoln finds signs of interrogation, meaning that Aldridge was there, trying to find out what Balmana knew. All of a sudden, someone runs out of the restaurant. Lincoln chases him down and takes him back to Donovan and Marshall. They interrogate the guy, called Roberto, and he reveals the man who shot at the restaurant, Aldridge, was talking about a house. He was asking about a CIA safe house and talked about a plane. They arrive at the safe house, but it's been attacked. The safe house has a computer system, and whatever Aldridge wanted is on there. They see CIA agents being interrogated and enter an area with the computers. They find Aldridge asking a man where the safe is. Aldridge finds a
Computer. They only got a computer this late. This one on like 5 and I didn't even know that. That must have been exclusive.
what he was looking for and executes the man in front of Donovan and then leaves. A bunch of mercenaries turn up and try to kill Lincoln and Donovan, but they get out of it. Donovan is very nervous. Aldridge took a file containing some sensitive information. Donovan reveals that ever since Roberto mentioned the plane, Donovan knew what Aldridge was after: thermonuclear warheads. Lincoln and Donovan track down one of Balmana's crew, a Ruben Paez, and he's a janitor at a department store. They get to Paez just in time, defending him from some more mercenaries. Paez was shot but tells them that their crew was ordered to return the warheads and that they took them to an airstrip on an island outside of Mexico City. Lincoln and Donovan arrive at the island, and after fighting their way through a load of mercenaries, they find the plane. There are no warheads at all, but a mercenary tells them that Aldridge has a contact in the NVA, a general who will pay big money for the warheads. More shooting, and after clearing even more mercenaries, they arrive at a facility. Fighting their way through the facility, they find Aldridge. They injure him, and Donovan, after a brief chat, takes Aldridge out. They secure the warhead, surviving an ambush in the process, and a chopper picks it up. Lincoln and Donovan get back to work on the Marcano situation. Now, with 3 of the Marcano family lieutenants, namely Doucette, Greco, and Barbieri, taken out, they need to go after the rest. One of the lieutenants they need to take out is a man named Frank Pagani. He's one of the lieutenants for Tommy Marcano. Frank uses a ship to smuggle things in and out of New Bordeaux. What's more is that Frank has been going to Cuba for the last 8 months, where Marcano ran some now shut down casinos and has been bringing back anything salvageable from those casinos for his new one. Frank's rackets are stolen vehicles and freight. After bugging Frank's car, Lincoln takes out both rackets and draws Frank out. After a high-speed chase, Frank concedes. Dying, Frank tells Lincoln that the real reason for the trips to Cuba was to bring in a man named Alvarez, a counterfeiter brought in specifically to make counterfeit cash. Frank then drops this bombshell.
Had me bringing a man named Alvarez, counterfeiter who works for Castro.
He give you the plates too?
Plates? I thought you knew. On account of robbery.
Robbery? Marcano wanted the plates from the Federal Reserve.
Lincoln sees Donovan about Alvarez, and Donovan plays Lincoln a recording which basically says that Alvarez has bottled it and he wants to go back to Cuba. His uncle said he'd send a boat and for him to wait at the warehouse, but Alvarez's uncle and Sal Marcano go way back, so Alvarez's uncle sells him out. Lincoln manages to get to Alvarez, who tells Lincoln that the counterfeit money operation is set up at a boxing gym that is owned by Tommy Marcano, one of Sal's capos and Sal's youngest brother. Lincoln rescues him, and after another shootout, Lincoln takes the man to Father James, who offers the man refuge and sorts him out with transport to a contact in New Mexico. It's now time for the second lieutenant to go. It's the turn of Tony DeRazio. Meeting up with Donovan for the scoop on DeRazio, he gives Lincoln the lowdown.
This part of town's run by a man named Tony DeRazio. From what I was able to piece together, he's a real fucking weirdo.
Tony DeRazio, it seems, never leaves the Royal Hotel. So Lincoln draws him out by taking out his rackets, a construction racket and a blackmail racket. Speaking to Donovan, word is that Tony DeRazio has made a rare trip out of the hotel. He executed one of his guys who wasn't pulling his weight and put a guy called Dominic in charge of recovering any owed money. Lincoln has a choice to go in through the lobby, which means a certain firefight, or he could steal Dominic's car and go in using stealth. Whatever he chooses, Lincoln makes his way through the hotel and confronts DeRazio in his penthouse suite. In line with Lincoln's MO of public killings, Lincoln throws DeRazio out of the window, causing a public shock down on the street. Lincoln makes it out of the hotel. So 5 down, 1 to go. It's time to go after a man named Enzo Conti. Conti has been running the district of Berkeley Mills for decades. He runs a garbage racket which uses the trains to bring in construction materials for Sal's casino. Enzo's a little bit different though. He has reservations about Sal's casino and thinks that Sal is just going to end up screwing over everyone who helps him with it. Lincoln does his business and takes out Conti's 2 rackets, a gun-running racket and the garbage racket. Lincoln and Donovan call Enzo Conti and Lincoln offers him a deal. Conti tells Lincoln to meet him at the quarry. Lincoln gets there and he and Enzo talk.
Hold on here. I know you. You're Lincoln Clay, right? Lived with Sammy Robinson? Went off to Nam?
That's right.
Christ, son, if I'd have known that, we could have saved ourselves a whole lot of trouble. You probably don't know this, but Sammy and I went way back. He was a good man. Didn't deserve what happened to him. Hell, none of y'all did. And this shit with the casino, it's a giant fuck you from Sal to every man who ever worked for him. He wants to go legit and fuck the rest of us in the process. Guess it's well past time I fucked him back. You know Remy, man who ever worked for him. He wants to go legit and fuck the rest of us in the process. Guess it's well past time I fucked him back. You know Remy Duval?
Sure, he's the big shot on the radio.
Without him, there's no casino. He owns the land, runs. Well past time I fucked him back. It's a giant fuck you from Sal to every man who ever worked for him. He wants to go legit and fuck the rest of us in the process. Hell, none of y'all did.
Oh shit, what? What the heck? What the hell nigga be tripping? Let me old ass nigga be tripping, bro. Man, what the hell, bro? Hold on, bro. Hold on.
And this shit with the casino, it's a giant fuck you from Sal to every man who ever worked for him. He wants to go legit and fuck the rest of us in the process.
You said what? Come on, man.
Guess it's well past time I fucked him back.
Said what? No diddy, man.
You know Remy Duval?
Sure, he's the big shot on the radio.
Without him, there's no casino. He owns the land, runs a construction company, you name it.
So these are all fronts?
Yeah, they're bullshit. Created a big paper trail to protect himself in case everything falls apart.
And Marcano doesn't own any of the land?
Nah, it all belongs to Duval. He's no idiot. Long as it's in his name, Sal can't touch him.
How do I find him?
He lives up in Frisco Fields. But from what I hear, Olivia Marcano is keeping close tabs on him, forcing him to stay low. The last thing Sal needs is for his sole legitimate partner to get into trouble.
After their chat, Lincoln helps Enzo Conti get out of the quarry as Sal sends a load of his guys to take Enzo out. Lincoln then drops Enzo off at a hotel. With all the lieutenants now dealt with, it's time to go after Sal's capos. Now, as Enzo Conti mentioned, Olivia Marcano is protecting a man named Remy Duval, due to him being a legit businessman and owning the land Sal is building his casino on. Thing is, Remy is a white supremacist who is the leader of a racist faction called the Southern Union, although to the public, he denies his involvement with the group. Remy is letting his hatred get in the way of Marcano's ambitions, as despite Olivia warning Remy not to do anything stupid, he does it anyway. Lincoln finds out the location of Remy, who has gathered all of his Southern Union
Ku Klux Klan. Whoa.
brothers and delivers a speech.
Not selling you the Ku Klux Klan, nigga. What do you mean?
The plan was to burn the Delray Hollow to the ground as a message. Lincoln kills all the Southern Union members, well, the ones that didn't flee, and Lincoln takes Remy out. Lincoln executes him, nailing him to a cross and setting fire to it. It gets worse for Sal.
Whoa. That's crazy. Damn. Badass, bro. Come on, man. Keep it going.
Remy didn't even name the Marcanos in the will. He handed the land over to a man
She not all that.
named Stephen DeGarmo, who was his nephew. Olivia says that 6 months prior, Remy revised the will, but it was never executed. All it needs is the signature of Stephen DeGarmo. They offer him a percentage of the profits if he signs over the land to them. After the death of poor old Remy, it's time for his wake. The wake was set up by Olivia Marcano. Lincoln disguises himself as a waiter, and Donovan, the scheming man he is, supplied Lincoln with LSD, the same stuff they used in MK Ultra, and Lincoln spiked the wine with LSD, so everyone at the wake was, well, high as a kite. With Olivia Marcano's security detail distracted, Lincoln confronts her. She's injured, and she confesses the location of DeGarmo. He's being persuaded to sign over the land in a building outside. Lincoln leaves her to die and goes to free DeGarmo and they escape. Not long after, Olivia survived her gunshot wound and was in hospital, but she didn't stay alive for long, as Georgie Marcano killed her. Sal, speaking to his brother Tommy about Alvarez, who has now disappeared,
So George McConnell killed his auntie? What?
is furious and reprimands Tommy. He demands that Tommy go down to the boxing gym and protect the operation, which leads us to Lincoln going after Capo number 2. Donovan had Lincoln track down a man named Alcee, a man who had double-crossed Sammy years back and who was thrown out of the Delray Hollow. Alcee has been recruiting fighters for Tommy's fighting racket. Lincoln says that if Alcee can get him into the gym, he'll work on letting him back into the Hollow again. They get in without an issue, with Alcee saying that Lincoln is there to fight. Lincoln wins a few fights and is declared a champion. He goes back to the locker room to collect his winnings, but Tommy Marcano is waiting for him with some of his guys. Lincoln is knocked out and Tommy has tied him to some machinery and is pouring gasoline all over Lincoln. He says he mixed vegetable oil with the gasoline, which makes it thicker and stickier, claiming it'll burn like napalm. But instead of getting on with it, Tommy wants to gloat, and this gives Lincoln the opportunity to break free and take out Tommy and his men. With Tommy wounded, Lincoln takes the plates that Sal stole, he torches their counterfeiting equipment and leaves Tommy to burn. Lincoln then leaves after fighting his way out of the gym. Shortly after this, Sal Marcano is having a meeting with a man named Nino Santangelo. He produces heroin that Georgie Marcano had been selling. Sal, though, doesn't want heroin in New Bordeaux. But Santangelo is there for a different reason. With Sal's income streams collapsing fast, Sal needs Santangelo to give him some money to help with his casino. Santangelo tells Sal that in exchange, he wants to be able to push heroin in New Bordeaux as freely as he likes. Sal reluctantly agrees, but Sal also wants Santangelo to kill Lincoln. Well, turns out it didn't go well for Santangelo as Lincoln takes him out first. Anyway, one more capo left, and it's Sal's brother Lou. Lou Marcano looks after a judge from
Damn, Lou like Trump.
the Fifth Circuit Court of Louisiana, an asset to the Marcano crime family called Cornelius Holden. As seen from Tony DeRazio's ledger, the Marcanos were paying Holden $10,000 a time for his support in the building of Sal's casino and all the legal aspects that come with it, like legalizing gambling in Louisiana. Holden, though, after realizing that Lincoln was coming after everyone linked to Marcano, was nervous. He threatened Lou Marcano and told him that until Lincoln is taken care of, Sal's case on legalizing gambling is going absolutely nowhere. So naturally, Lincoln takes out Judge Holden. Even an armed escort and an armored vehicle can't protect him. After this, Sal loses his head with Lou.
What was I supposed to do? He wouldn't listen, Sal. It ain't my fault. Nothing's ever your goddamn fault. I swear, if you wasn't my brother, I'd clip you myself. Now listen here. I know a guy, a state senator named Jacobs. He's on the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Committee. Has a lot of influence. Can we get to him? Already have. He has a thing for fucking on women who ain't his wife. I don't want to twist this guy's balls out of the gate, you understand? We need to be smart about this. Yeah, of course. How about I throw him a fundraiser on the riverboat? Show him a real nice time. Get him laid, all that shit. This goddamn casino got me tapped, you understand? This goes down to shit or we're fucked. All of us. Well, I'll pick the guests myself. Make sure they know what's what. Then we'll take a nice long cruise down the bayou, get them all liquored up. Once he sees that payday, Jacobs is gonna do whatever we want.
So, time to crash a party. Lincoln goes to rig explosives on a coal dumper in the bayou, and while the riverboat passed the coal dumper, the explosives cause the structure to land on the boat, causing it to slowly sink. Lincoln again has to fight his way through swathes of Lou's men. He corners Lou and Walter Jacobs, but before Lou can take the senator hostage, an explosion throws Lou and Lincoln overboard. Lou limps through the swamps, but Lincoln catches up with him.
I got money. You can have it. All of it. Just don't kill me.
I don't want your money. I want you to send a message to your brother.
Yeah. Anything. Oh, just say it. Just say it.
He kills Lou and strings him up on a statue in the French ward. The sign says "Re-elect Jacobs," a message to Sal Marcano. Jacobs, FYI, was killed too, scuppering Sal's plans for legalizing gambling in Louisiana. We'll take a break from the story quickly, as whilst visiting Father James at his parish, Father James takes Lincoln to Sammy's so he can possibly find some closure. See, while he was unconscious, Lincoln missed the funeral of Sammy and Ellis, so he never really got a chance to say goodbye. When they get to Sammy's, though, a girl called Anna runs out of the burnt remains of the bar. 3 strange men walk outside. Lincoln kills them and checks on Anna. Father James takes her to a safe house and Lincoln investigates. Lincoln grabs his recon camera to take pictures of any evidence in order to find out more about who the men were and what they were up to. A dead man lies on the floor, and after investigating, Lincoln ascertains that this man was running away and got shot after stabbing and mortally wounding another man. This seems to be a cult, and this man has got the same face paint and a strange tattoo. Lincoln goes to see Father James and Anna, and it turns out that it is indeed a cult that they are dealing with, and Anna is a part of the cult. Father James mentions the name Unsanglante. Lincoln remembers that Sammy used to tell him and Ellis stories about the Unsanglante to scare them. This cult are the Unsanglante, which is French for covered in blood. They practice human sacrifice. Their leader is a woman named Bonnie Harless. She recruited Anna to the cult whilst Anna was working a shift at a diner. Lincoln sets out to find Bonnie, who recruits people out of a nightclub downtown called Nuit Blanche. Lincoln gains entry to the club and follows the bouncer, Oscar, who doesn't like Bonnie and the cult at all. Bonnie is making a speech and Oscar says that Bonnie has her hooks into people. He explains that when he last saw Anna, he saw the cult taking her somewhere. After following Oscar, Lincoln enters the VIP area. He follows it through a strange series of tunnels to an indoctrination area, featuring some altars that show different locations in New Bordeaux. A storage warehouse, a school, and a picture of a Confederate general named Braxton Mosby Harless who had a huge house in Frisco Fields. Essentially, due to General Harless being a racist twat, in 1908 black residents of New Bordeaux had had enough of being lynched and killed by the Unsanglante and set fire to the New Bordeaux Opera House with 100 of the wealthiest citizens inside it. The cult then went into hiding in the bayou for decades. Anyway, Lincoln, on attempting to leave, is surprised by Bonnie, who releases some sort of gas, which makes Lincoln trip out. As always, Lincoln has to fight his way out. He checks out all 3 locations from the altars, and he essentially finds out that the cult worships some deity named Père Sanglant, a horned winged creature which was allegedly discovered and encountered by Braxton Harless. They perform rituals in places they call places of darkness. The recent deaths of Sammy, Ellis and Danny at Sammy's bar is the reason that the Unsanglante held a ritual there. Harless believed that his bloodline would bear the Père Sanglant into fleshly form and would be known as the Blessed. Lincoln, whilst at the old opera house, witnessed a tape of Anna being assaulted by the cult's high priest. He impregnated Anna with what they viewed as the cult's future leader, the Blessed. Lincoln goes back to Anna and discovers that Father James was knocked unconscious by Anna and she's hiding in the bathroom. Father James had been going over some photos and something triggered Anna's memory. She remembered what the high priest did to her. She is in the bathroom with a knife. She tells Lincoln that the cult are holed up at the old sanatorium. Lincoln tries to reason with her, but to no avail. Anna ends her own life. Furious, Lincoln goes to the sanatorium to finish the cult off. He fights through them all and confronts Bonnie. She gloats that the Unsanglante will survive long past any of them. Lincoln breaks the news that Anna is dead, so their savior won't be born. Bonnie lunges at Lincoln enraged, but he stabs her and she dies. Good riddance. Lincoln arranges for Anna to be buried along with Sammy and Ellis. After this, he goes to pick up his Aunt Lily, and together they rebuild Sammy's again, along with having a launch party to celebrate. But back into the story again. Lincoln goes to see Donovan so they can make their final move. They're finally going after Marcano. Donovan is getting ready to burn everything, and he plays Lincoln a very cathartic recording.
Goddamn motherfucking piece of shit! Lou's dead. They found him tied to that statue of Eddie Jackson over in the French ward. He was gutted like a goddamn catfish. Jesus fucking Christ. We would not be in this fucking mess if you done what you were supposed to do. You were there. I shot him right in the fucking head. Once! You shot him once! I am leveraged out the ass. Called in every favor, and none of it made a goddamn difference. We're fucked. I am fucked. Oh, now that's bullshit. We still got some men. I say we hit the streets and we found that cocksucker. Every low-life ball of piss in this city spills blood in the water. My blood. Do you understand? And they'd step over their own mother if it meant being the one that clipped me. I wouldn't last 10 fucking minutes out there. That's a crock of shit. You forget? You are Sal Marcano. Well, there's got to be something we can do. Call whatever men we still have left. Tell them meet us up there at the casino.
So guess where Lincoln is headed next? He arrives at the casino and gets through what's left of Sal's men. He confronts Georgie first. Sweet retribution.
You stupid motherfucker.
I always thought you were my friend. That you had me and Ellis's backs. It was just an act. You didn't kill me because I said no. You killed me because you thought you owned me. Owned all of us.
It was never about us. It was about my old man. My father. I'd do anything for him. Same as you and Sammy.
And you understand why I have to do this.
He ascends in the elevator for a face-to-face with Sal Marcano.
Whatever was between us is over, you understand? It ended the second it was you coming up them stairs instead of my son. You know, a month or so after my brother Lucho died, I started having nightmares. I had this one where I was on a boat. Giant wave come, knocked my ass overboard. I hit that water and sink like a goddamn rock. But the one that really got to me was Georgie's funeral. He's laid out in that shitty little casket. Neck cut, same as Lucho's. I buried a lot of people, more than I can count. The one I never wanted to see go down in that cold ground was my son.
And yet here we are.
Yes, sir. Here we are. My son is dead, and I'm having a drink with his killer. I'm not gonna apologize for what I did, you understand? If I did, I'd just be lying.
Now, Lincoln has a choice. He can leave and Sal shoots himself, but the alternative is a lot cooler. It's done. It's over. Lincoln leaves the casino when we meet an old friend again, Leo Galante. He reveals that he told Sal that the casino would be the end of him, but he meant figuratively. He tells Lincoln that the commission want him dead, along with anyone else who had anything to do with Sal's murder. He delivers a message and says that Lincoln made his point, but it all ends here. Leo says that Lincoln will still need to kick back 20% of any profits in New Bordeaux. In exchange, Lincoln can run things how he sees fit. Then Leo leaves, but you may recognize his driver. It seems that Joe wasn't killed at all. Now, in the game, Lincoln can help Vito with a vendetta. After killing 5 targets, Vito explains why Lincoln killed them.
I handled the last of that problem for you.
Oh. Shit. So it's really fucking over. God damn it.
You all right?
Yeah. It's just, means Joe's really dead. Good friend of mine. It's more like family. Me and him tried to do something big for this motherfucker named Leo Galante. Big shot with the commission. Anyways, it all went south and we got fucked. That's what you get for following orders, right? It was a couple of years there. I didn't know if Joe was alive or what.
When did you know?
Maybe 4 or 5 years after I got sent down here. I still had a little pull back home. I kept some feelers out. Anyway, word comes back, one of the guys I saw drive off with Joe's running his mouth. Can't hold his liquor. And someone heard him going on about some loudmouth Leo wanted him to put down. Yeah, that same loudmouth cost this guy his front teeth and cracked.
Stay the video, like, subscribe, and share, and join around and keep supporting the next video tomorrow, man. Stay tuned. We're going live too.